jump on their bicycles.
Okay, so thanks everybody for coming to, I think, lecture 15 of our 22 lectures that we teach at the University of Victoria. It's our 4th year of the lecture series here. And I had hoped to have a guest speaker today. You're going to have to put up with me. I'm going to try again. I've been having no luck at all getting hold of Blake from Good Seed Hemp, who comes here from Saskatchewan over the winter time. And I'm really hoping to get him to come and teach a class on growing hemp, and actually even speaking this fall or spring at Vancouver Island University when we have our first ever convention there at the end of March. But I'm not able to have him here today, unfortunately. And if I can't get him next year, it will be a class that I will try and teach myself, and it will be really interesting to see the evolution of my own thoughts, because I am, at the same time as teaching these lectures, the founder of the Cannabis Buyers Club of Canada. I have about probably 3,100 sick people that come to our facilities in Victoria to get medicine, and I have a number of people that have been growing medicine for the club for years, and I am finally at the point where I'm ready to pay more attention, I guess you could say, to what people are producing for the club. And so by the time I get in front of you next year, I would hope to have seen and visited a few dozen facilities, and not only will know a lot about the set and setting that is really important for growing cannabis, but the actual specifics. And there will be a shift that has not yet occurred at the club, whereby next year at this time I also hope to be able to say we are providing nothing but organics, and that is an area that I hope to specialize in. And so it will be interesting to see, like I say, the evolution of thought in myself. I haven't gone to that many grow rooms. I'm a distribution expert. I'm not a growing expert, although I have learned through osmosis a few things. So we'll see how I do. In the past, friends of mine have put together this little chart that I'm going to pass around here. I believe it's available on our Cannabis Buyers Club of Canada webpage with some other growing information, although we'll be adding a lot of other stuff to that. But this is a nice little simple chart about organic fertilizers and the different types of manure and the sort of breakdown of chemicals in them and different teas that you can make and stuff like that. So it's a neat little chart that you may want to check out. I'll just get you guys to pass it around here. Having spent only some time growing outdoors and visiting the odd indoor crop, I can only speak to some things about growing cannabis, but it's a huge subject. There are volumes and volumes of books out there and sites, and in a way, more importantly, forums that are providing really good information about how to grow cannabis and grow organic cannabis in particular. Not all sites are equal though, so going to a different web page, and I hesitate to say any are better or worse than others, but you know, you be the judge when you're out there. Some of the forums have got very high level, intelligent discussions amongst people that are growing, and some of the forums are more speculative amongst more amateur types. So if you're going to use forums, and in some ways they're the best way to get information and stuff. On the other hand, really buying a book and having some kind of foundation to go from of understanding, because it is such a complex plant and there's so many different ways of looking at it. You know, buying or borrowing a book and giving it a thorough read gives you a good base. If you're going to invest in growing cannabis in any way, and even if you're just interested in the plant, you know, buying something written by a person who has in some ways at least devoted part of their life to growing and understanding the plant is just critical. You know, like $30 or $40 for a book is nothing compared to what people put into grow ops, and it's stunning how many times people will set up lights without actually having bought and read a book first. And there are a lot of good old books out there, Grow Your Own Stone, How to Grow Marijuana Indoors, I think being two of the very first coming out, like certainly early, well, 75 for this one, and 73 for Grow Your Own Stone. This might be the oldest one about growing, and this is another old school one. I guess I didn't grab all the books. Probably the best ones out there are the ones by George. I'm horrible at saying names other than stupid English, but there's several that George Cervantes, I think is how you say it, has put out. Another book or group of books I often refer people to are written by Mel Frank. There's one him and Ed Rosenthal put together. Hesitate to say the name, but I'm sure it's in the bibliography and the handout. But it's good for people, to get a book written by, again, someone who's gone out of their way to learn about this plant and try and teach about it. And these books, though, are not the end by any means. It's more kind of a doorway to a whole other world of experimenting and growing. And so, while I can give some tips and ideas and thoughts, there is no real set path. In fact, the work I'm going to do is towards standard operating procedures. Most of it is going to be what not to do. I won't be telling you what to do. It'll be giving you a range of options, but there'll be a whole bunch of stuff that isn't going to be allowed, certainly for medical purposes, and I think that would be best to do for the general population as well, that will set in some ways the standards, and hopefully the rest of the industry, first medical and then otherwise, will take advantage of that. And one of the real hesitations in switching to organics, which is really what I'm talking about doing in some ways, is the fact that a lot of people think that their yield will be affected, and that's partly because without taking a little bit more care and attention, it certainly will be, and maybe the profit margins aren't quite as great as they are if you just put in cheap fertilizers. Certainly, you could eat craft dinner and save money that way as well, but it's really important, if you want a quality product, to put quality ingredients into that. And the means to do that with organics is available now, and the market is still very immature, and the product lines are very small. There's a few out there that do fit into what is organic, but there's no real organic certification on fertilizers and such. And even then, the next step is, beyond organics, will be testing with the mass spectrometer and gas chromatographer, because while growing organic is really important, far too often people put in too much fertilizer. Worm castings, for example, we've been having problems with some of our growers putting in too many worm castings and recycling the soil, which I'd love to do, but if you keep adding in worm castings every time you're recycling your soil, you're going to end up with too much nitrogen, and then it's going to have a burn problem no matter how potent it is. And I'll show some trichomes at the end of the session here, but often when you see crystals on a plant, especially if it's not burning, what you're looking at is actually nitrogen crystals, because the plant, if it absorbs too much nitrogen through the roots, will essentially sweat out the nitrogen in salts. And so I've seen many occasions where there'd be a bud that would look really crystally, and in fact a lot of